What's up, everybody? I'm switching up tonight. Hello and welcome to another edition of the MrWarrenHayes Show, and I am the man that you are expecting to see, hence the name in the title of the show, MrWarrenHayes, and I want to welcome you all here. I want to say hello. I want to say hi, happy Thursday evening to everyone who's here watching this live, being recorded on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, because yes, I do this every Thursday evening, hanging out here in Warren Hayes headquarters and just getting ready to talk about a full week of wrestling. And it was a good week of wrestling, I gotta tell you that much. It was a good time to be had by everyone who was a wrestling fan this week. I feel there was a little something for everyone. It's fantastic. It's great. You're fantastic, and you're fantastic. And when I'm actually pointing at people here. I'm looking at the chat room right here because yes, I do have a chat room. I have a chat room full of people here tonight who come to watch the show live and have a good time right here on the show, on the stream. And my hair looks like a mess tonight. What am I doing? Warren, these people come over to say hello to you and hang out with you. The most you could do is look presentable. Jesus. I want to say hello to Patrick Mason, who's here this evening. Tim Traver as well, who also sent a super chat. Tim, thank you very much. It just says eating a snack and having some pop. Yeah, I'm so glad that it sounds like a perfect evening, Tim. Good. I'm glad to hear it. We also have Robert Larry, who's here as well. Benoit in the chat. We have Carlos is here as well. David Reed, how you doing? RJ Krasinski is here. How you doing, RJ? Jason PS3 as well. Who else? We got JPQ of the No Particular Angle podcast here as well. Tony Weigand. Anyway, look, Tony, I'm glad to see you regardless of how I mispronounced and butchered your last name. The important part is that we're all here tonight, that we're all gathered to talk about wrestling and to enjoy wrestling and to have a good time talking about wrestling, taking it seriously, but not taking it too seriously, right? That's how the commercial goes. So if you're watching this right now live, you know what's fantastic. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the chat. You know what the great thing you can do right now, if you want, I mean, if you're digging this already, you can give this video a thumbs up on YouTube. And that's really cool because YouTube likes that kind of stuff. And maybe you're not watching it live, maybe you're watching it on your own time, whenever. Hey, you can still leave a like. A thumbs up. That's fantastic. Share the video. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Or if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application, because the Mr. Warren Hayes Show is available on all available platforms of podcasting all across the world. Well, you can give us a like, a review, a 5-star review, a 4-star review, a 3-star review, a 2-star review. Hey, a 1-star review. What have I ever done to you? You can do whatever you want. Whatever you can do to show support over on your favorite podcast app, that's fantastic. Because that stuff supports the show, and that's amazing. And you know how else you can support the show? You can do it 2 ways. You can, if you want, drop a super chat right here as we're chit-chatting here, and I will read your question, statement, comment. As long as it's not offensive, I will roll with it. I will do it, and I will appreciate it. That's a great way to show support. Another way that you can show support is by joining the Mr. Warren Hayes Patreon over at patreon.com/MrWarrenHayes, where you have a bunch of extra content, including, but not exclusive, not just only that, if you join the $5 tier, which is the Power Pal tier, you get a bunch of extra goodies. You get me going off on random tangents and stuff, commenting on things happening. You get early access to my NWA Power recap every week. Plus, you get a post stream. You get a patron-only post stream that happens every Thursday immediately after the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. It's called Warren is Off the Clock. And here's the big thing. Here's the big announcement. This is the one thing I'm really, really excited about. I'm so excited. I'm going to take a sip of water. Tonight, I am offering the post show, Warren is Off the Clock, for free, as a free preview of what you can get when you become a $5 patron of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Go check it out. Come join me immediately after. It's a different atmosphere. I'm off the clock, so I'm a lot looser, and we chat a lot more. I talk a lot. I interact a lot more with the chat, so it's a good time. We have a fun time. And tonight I'm going to be talking about the fantastic problems that WWE has with its women in NXT. They're good problems to have, and they were exposed this week, in my opinion, but they're fantastic problems to have, so I can't wait to chat more about that with you. That's going to be happening right after tonight's show. Head on over to patreon.com/MrWarrenHayes. The link is right there. The post is public. Come join me after, man, and then think about it. Think about joining the Patreon. Think about sort of showing a bit of support. That's fantastic. I want to say hello to Ryan W., who's here. Bert Macklin, how you doing? Good to see you. Lots of people popping in the chat. It's a good time. It gets me really excited. Hey, don't forget, tomorrow evening I'm going to be over on the Fightful channel to recap SmackDown, which is something I do every Friday night with Sean Ross Sapp, so that's always as well a good time. Otherwise, I will be back next week with my NWA Power recap. As I said, early access, live recording, and early access for $5 patrons. And then released into the wild on Wednesday. Then the Wednesday Night Wars podcast. Then I'm back next week for another MrWarrenHayes show. It's the cycle of life. It just keeps. Not the circle. It's an endless, perpetual rolling machine that just keeps on perpetuating. Something like that. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just gonna move on. Don't forget as well, folks, if you want. Like I'm talking, okay? Now, this is something that if you want, but there's no reason why you wouldn't want it. But if you want the best, the very best in women's wrestling coverage, I've got one address for you. Belltobells.com. That's BELLTOBELLES. You head on over there, you get a bunch of fantastic articles. Everything that's happening in the wild world of women's wrestling is fantastic. And you know what? There's a great series, a great feature series right now with interviews focusing on independent stars, women who are running the independent circuit that are being interviewed by the good folks over at Bell to Bells. And I'm talking women that not AAA indie stars. I'm talking about women who are starting off, who are working hard, who are who are on the verge of breaking out as indie darlings. Bell to Bells will talk to them first. When they start breaking out and they try to, and AEW tries to scoop them up and put them into their women's division to try and save it, well, you'll have heard about them first on belltobells.com, so go check it out. Follow them. Follow Bell to Bells on Twitter as well at Bell to Bells. I'm in a good mood. I don't know if you can tell. I was sick earlier this week. I think that's part of it. Like I had a pretty bad stomach flu, which ruined the Royal Rumble for me, which kind of sucked, but I was able to catch up with it. We ruined a couple of things actually this week, if I'm being honest. So I'm feeling good tonight. I'm good to go. I hope you guys are good to go. I'm ready to go, and we are going to go right ahead with the weekly wrestling inspection. I'm sorry. I will never learn. It's all right. It's okay. So I'm going to tell you straight off. There was a lot of good things in wrestling this week, and this is what we're going to be focusing on tonight. This is what we're going to be focusing on tonight. I'm going to try. Hey, maybe I should do an ASMR show. Like do an entire show in ASMR. Just like, hello everyone. All right, tonight we're going to be talking about Brock Lesnar. Maybe I should do that. Chat, write in ASMR in the chat if you want me to do an ASMR episode at some point. Chris Jacobs, how you doing? Welcome to the chat. All right, but there's going to be a lot of cool beans. This is what I was getting at. There's going to be a lot of cool beans this week. I want to focus on the good stuff because there was a lot of good stuff. There really, really was a lot of good stuff. NWA Hard Times is one of these very, very good things that happened this week. Another good showing from the NWA in the NWA Power era. It's good stuff. I got to tell you, it was really a solid pay-per-view where it's just an elongated version of Power, same type of nonstop action where everything just keeps happening, not much time to take a breath. I like it. I like the way it was formulated. There was some, of course, the TV title tournament that happened there. Ricky Starks won the title. It was a good choice. I thought Tim Storm was going to be the guy. If it wasn't going to be Tim Storm, I think Ricky Starks was the guy to do it. A fantastic idea. Good main event. I thought everything went well together. I think everything worked really well. But by God, Thunder Rosa versus Allison Kay for the NWA World's Women Championship stole the show. It tore the house down. It was such a good match. It's the kind of match that's worth the buy. It's a $20 pay-per-view, guys, gals. It doesn't break the bank all that hard. Totally worth it just to watch that match. You should go check it out. And if you're not sure, I talk about it on my NWA Power Recap. So I'm going to leave it at that. But I just wanted to underscore the fact that Hard Times, man, it was good stuff. Hopefully you get a chance to see it. Then on Saturday, we were treated to Worlds Collide. The well, there's a few ASMRs in the chat. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if that's proper representation for a full-on ASMR MrWarrenHayes show. I don't know. We'll see. I'll keep that in mind. Worlds Collide was the NXT UK combo show. I thought it was another really good pay-per-view. Look, it's simple. It's just as simple as this. DIY versus Mustache Mountain is required viewing. It was one part. It was a match that was made for the fans. It catered to the fans. There was a lot of fandom involved in it. A lot of fan service. That's exactly what I was looking for. A lot of fan service, but not in a bad way. It was really, really good. And then when the action kicked in, man, did it cook. It was a fantastic match. Great story that was told. Can't recommend it enough. It was also Walter's coming out party. Not in that sense, in the sense that I find that he hasn't been really used as Walter in NXT, in especially during Survivor Series. Here, he was the dominant monster that we knew and loved from his days at WXW in the European Independent Circuit. Fantastic match. Absolutely fantastic as well. That was a lot of fun. I thought Finn Balor versus Ilya Dragunov was hard hitting. That was real good. It was really primo stuff. But everyone, listen to me. This is something that we have to put out into the world. I want you to write to your favorite WWE booker. And I want you to let him know that we're done with Toni Storm versus Rhea Ripley. They are unable to have a good match together. I've seen every one of their matches. Back when I was covering NXT UK for Fightful Select, I saw all of their fights. I saw them all. None of them were anything special. This was another snoozer, and it's a shame, and I don't understand. What's going on with Toni Storm ever since she's been hired by WWE. I feel like they paid for something they ain't getting, but don't let that distract you. There's too much good stuff on this pay-per-view to not take the time to watch it. And if you're strapped for time, DIY versus Mustache Mountain, gals and guys, that's the one you want. That's the one you have to watch. Are we going to talk about the Royal Rumble? Because I got a lot of stuff to say about the Royal Rumble. Bye. But a lot of good stuff. This is what I want to focus on. This is what I'm telling you. I'm not kidding when I say there's a lot of cool beans on the way tonight. And this is what I want to focus on. So first, because there's a lot of talking points. There was a lot of talking points on this show. And we're going to start straight off the bat, and we're going to talk about Edge's return. It had been hinted at. It's maybe not as much of a complete and total surprise as the Hardy Boys returning 2 years ago. My God, it's already been 2 years ago. Holy crap. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. We're going on 3, right? No, it's been 2018 is when they return. Anyway, Edge's return, it's just magnificent. 9 years away from wrestling, a career-ending injury. And apparently started hanging out with Daniel Bryan's doctors. I don't know. But it was such a cool surprise, even if it had been hinted at, even though Edge had been shutting it down and so on and so forth. It was still such a feel good moment. He was into it. He was drinking it in. The audience went bananas. The spears that he threw were fantastic and spicy and well sold, mind you. That was such a good moment. So straight off there. So of course, that creates all the discussions around the possibilities of who Edge is going to fight next, what's coming up. Well, we got a bit of an answer to that the next night on Raw, but I'm going to talk about that in a little while. Spoiler alert. The Women's Rumble, for me, was match of the night. For me, I thought it was a lot of fun. And this is not... The Royal Rumble overall was a damn good show. I thought it was a very, very strong Royal Rumble. I think it's one of the best Royal Rumbles in pay-per-views in history. And I think it's one of WWE's strongest pay-per-views in a long, 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 long time. It was really good. The Women's Rumble, I loved it. We got to start by talking about Bianca Belair. She lasted over 30 minutes. I mean, she could not have been booked better. It feels like she was booked by fans. Honest to God. It really, really feels like she was booked by people who just really, really like her. She lasted over 30 minutes. She had a record 7 eliminations during her time in that 30 minutes. She entered in at number 2. Alexa Bliss was number 1. She was number 2. She eliminated Molly Holly, Nikki Cross, Dana Brooke, Tamina, who's like in and out, Candice LeRae, Sonya Deville, and Mandy Rose. It was fantastic. This is how you had to build Bianca Belair in the Royal Rumble situation, in that pay-per-view. She had to come across as the physical, dominant athlete that she is, and that's what she was portrayed as. That's what she came across as, and it's fantastic. And that will do wonders to carry her in her feud with Rhea Ripley heading into TakeOver Portland. I think it's fantastic. Legitimizes her in the eyes of the audience who aren't necessarily tuned into Wednesday nights. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. You gotta tip your hat to Alexa Bliss as well, who had a great showing. A great showing as well. Naomi returned. And I know there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts about it, but no. Here's one thing you have to keep in mind. Here's one thing that all of yous, you have to say to yourselves. You can't go around saying, no. The women's division needs a performer like Naomi more than ever. And Naomi's problems that she's had in the past, or at least in the recent past, because this is a former SmackDown Women's Champion we're talking about. The recent problems that she had was exclusively, and I will go to war on this, was exclusively around creative. It was her booking. It was how she was handled, how women's matches were handled. She is a very capable athlete. She is very good at what she does. And you give her proper motivation, just like anyone really, and she'll give it her all. So I'm looking forward to all of this moving forward. We got a lot of people excited. I'm glad she's back. Shayna Baszler showed up in the Royal Rumble as well. Santina Marella showed up in the Royal Rumble. Honestly, I don't have all that much of a problem with it. I really don't. because Kristen Ashley, hello, how you doing? I don't have a problem all that much with Santina Marella being in the Royal Rumble, and I'll tell you why. If we don't have a problem with women being in the men's Royal Rumble, I think it's only fair for it to be flipped around like that, especially when you consider that whenever a dude goes into the women's Royal Rumble, it's always as a joke. It's always at his expense. Yes, they could have given that spot to 20 other women. It could have been Deonna Purrazzo. It could have been Shotzi was Caden Carter. They could have given it to I'm just drawing blanks right now. But they could have given it to a whole bunch of other women just to give them a chance in the spotlight. They could have, but they decided to do this. And there's always a comedy spot in the Rumble. I'm okay with it. It was stupid. It was harmless. I think that nostalgia, as far as nostalgia goes, we seem to remember Santina Marella as something a little more entertaining than it was, really? Because I don't remember enjoying it all that much. But otherwise, it was all right. Charlotte winning the Royal Rumble? Sure, I'm okay with that. Sure, I'm 100% okay with Charlotte winning the Royal Rumble. It's credible for her to head on over to WrestleMania, have it be in a title shot. Sure, absolutely. Who is she going to challenge? Look, here's what I think should happen, because a lot of people are saying, well, Rhea Ripley should challenge her. Or she should challenge Rhea Ripley. But then people are like, well, that means she'll be going down a notch, going for the NXT Women's Championship, or the NXT Championship, excuse me. But to me, here's what I'd do. I'd have Rhea Ripley show up one night on Raw and say, hey, pal, why don't, you haven't declared who you want to fight yet. Why don't you fight me? Like, as if Rhea wants to establish herself, go after Charlotte herself. To me, it'd fit in her character, and Charlotte at first could be like, look, this is my choice, and Rhea could be like, well, I'm going to make it so that you don't have a choice, kind of thing. Could be very, very interesting. Could be a lot of fun. The Generation MC. How you doing? Welcome to the chat. You're never late when you show up to a Warren Hayes stream. The men's Rumble, I thought, was good. We're going to talk about Brock Lesnar right now. I have absolutely 100%, unequivocally, no problems with Brock going through dudes like he did. Why? Why do I have no problem with him for the first 15 eliminations? He basically taking care of them. Essentially, I'm broad paint stroke here. Essentially taking care of everyone all by himself. I'm going to tell you why. Because it built Drew McIntyre. And now listen to me, WWE fans. This is important. I want you to pay attention to me. And I'm including myself in this because I'm a WWE fan. I'm a wrestling fan, and I like WWE. But listen to this. Ross Vape, how you doing? This is how you build a new star. How many times as WWE observers and fans have been saying, oh, well, you never have new stars up in the... And this is my voice when I complain, by the way. I'm not trying to imitate anyone outside of myself when I start getting hissy, all right? This is Warren Hayes' hissy voice right here. Oh, well, they never put anyone up in the title picture. It's always Roman, it's always Brock, it's always Roman, it's always Brock. Look at what they're doing here. When Drew McIntyre returned to main roster after a stint in NXT, after being injured and coming back from that, everyone was like, this is a main eventer, put him up top right now. What did they do? They waffled with him. They didn't do it. They had him come out really menacing at first, but then they paired him up with Dolph, and then he became like a Braun Strowman lackey, and he became a mercenary for everyone, including Shane McMahon. They waffled with him. When everyone was saying, Drew has to be at the top. Now look what they're doing. They're not waffling. They're not making another Braun Strowman out of him where they have a sure thing And they're just sort of like, they're not pulling the trigger on it. They're hesitating. No, they're going straight in. Drew hits the ring, claymores the hell out of Brock Lesnar. He falls over, gets eliminated, and Drew moves on to win the Royal Rumble. Then on Raw, he goes to challenge Brock. That, my friends, is exactly how you create a new star. How you put someone in a position to come across as a credible threat to your invincible champion. Because that was the story of the Royal Rumble. There were no there wasn't two tails in this Royal Rumble. There was one. The tale was the creation of Drew McIntyre as the top babyface challenger for the WWE Championship. So you can try to look at this at many, many angles, but this is what was done. And WWE, to their absolute credit, did it wonderfully. That's what the Men's Royal Rumble was for this year. It was to create Drew McIntyre as a real top-notch contender, and we all buy into it. Maybe it's because we were all already enamored with his rugged Scottish looks. Or maybe it's the Royal Rumble that put him over for us. Whatever, it works. And I thought that it's fantastic. And then one last talking point about the Rumble. I'm already going over the time that I allotted for it, but here we go. The Fiend versus Daniel Bryan is a match that people aren't talking about enough, and I understand why, because there's already so much to talk about with all the major happenings in the Royal Rumble itself. This was a really, really good match, you guys. It really was. In all the talking points, I fear if I don't speak loud enough, no one's going to remember this when I talked about it on Twitter. And, there's a lot of people who reacted positively to it. It was good stuff. It was nice and violent. There were no red lights, so that the welts that started building on Daniel Bryan's back were clear and visible and throbbing and gut-wrenching and harsh. It went as far violently as PG era WWE can take us. But my God, it did a fantastic job. And I'm going to tell you another thing here. If WWE had spent its time booking The Fiend in ring, just like they did against Daniel Bryan as a sort of a legitimate predator, as a guy that you just don't understand how you can put him down, who just doesn't pop up after a half, or not a half, but an actual baker's dozen of curb stomps to the head. Put him in these situations where he can just be a psycho killer, where we have competitive matches, where you have babyface versus underdog dynamic nonetheless, babyface versus heel dynamics. I think a lot of people would still be latching on to the concept of Bray Wyatt. This was Bray Wyatt's. A lot of people were saying this is Bray Wyatt's best match as The Fiend. Yet this is Bray Wyatt's best match in a long time, even before his hiatus. He was particularly into it. I really like this match. And if you're, to me, it's worth a rewatch, this match in and about itself. It was special. On any other pay-per-view, people would be raving about it. And that's all we'd be talking about. It'd be the main talking point. And then, look, it's one of the reasons why Royal Rumble was so good. I'm going to talk quickly about the Edge angle on Raw, how absolutely fantastic it was. I'm going to keep on with the cool beans. I'm still keeping the cool beans right here. I mean, there's no reason. There's no reason otherwise. Edge comes out and he drinks it in. It's an emotional moment. He drops the names, familiar faces, new faces. He drops the names of Orton, Reigns, AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Aleister Black, and Matt Riddle. And Orton comes out, welcomes him home, says he's like a brother to him, and but then he turns on him. Randy Orton turns on Edge, and it was fantastic. He RKO's him. He wants to Pillmanize Edge with the chair, but he decides to not to when he starts to leave, but then he comes back and instead he double concertos him. I know they're not technically chair shots to the head in WWE speaking, but it's been a while since we've seen something like that, and added to the violence of it, to the gravity of it. I like this. I like this a lot, and it worked really well. And you guys know I'm not a fan of main event segments. You know I don't like when shows end with talky talks, but when you have a special kind of talent like Edge who can talk up a storm like that, it's fantastic. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. There was so much sincerity and real emotion in what Edge was delivering. It made it special. It made the moment. And that's when you start realizing that it's really the kind of thing that WWE is missing. They have AEW, NWA, their promos are built on these types of emotions, not phony baloney line reading. It's stuff coming from the heart, letting the wrestlers speak about themselves, speak from themselves. And when you see that kind of stuff happen on WWE television, like with Edge on Monday night, you sort of realize that this is the ingredient that's missing in WWE programming on a regular basis, so that WWE programming can just, if WWE did this with all its promos all the time, it would tear down the competition. It really, really would. Because this is the type of stuff that audiences connect with. Not stuff about come and knock on my door. Not that kind of goofy garbage. Stuff that we can connect to because it's simple to connect to. If there were more honest to God, earnest promos in WWE, I promise you, I'm convinced, maybe not promise, but I'm convinced that WWE would be running circles around all its competition and would be a much more compelling product to watch. Let's move on to AEW now. We're going to talk about Britt Baker's promo and her clear heel turn. Britt's promo on Dynamite this week was the highlight of the show. If you guys watched the Wednesday Night Wars podcast last night, which I anchored, Sean wasn't there. I can do that sometimes. I'm a champ. Alex Pulowski, Jeremy Lambert, and myself, we all agreed that neither NXT nor AEW had a particularly strong showing last night. But as far as AEW goes, maybe outside of the 15 seconds where Adam Page came to the ring with his beer in his hand, gave it to Matt Jackson, hit the buckshot lariat on the Butcher, then climbed back out of the ring, took his drink back, guzzled it down, then went back up. Aside from that moment there, Britt Baker's promo last night was a highlight. She comes out, she dunks on Shivani, and then she shoots. I mean, it's a work shoot, but bear with me here. She shoots on JR, saying that he sits there in smug judgment of, she's saying this, of my division, of my generation, sitting there collecting a big paycheck. She tells him, JR, stop being a sloppy barbecue salesman who can't even get the names of the women in our division right. And I'm sitting there saying, has someone been reading my tweets? Has someone been in my timeline in AW Creative putting these lines together for Britt? This was fantastic. I really dug this. And after that, I was like, wait, hang on a second. Britt Baker's not a heel. She's speaking the truth. I'm on her side now. So that's exciting stuff. She diagnoses Tony Schiavone with moderately to severe gingivitis. This is great stuff. It's highlight of the night. I can't wait to see where this goes. I can only hope that her in-ring confidence grows with her promo confidence, because if she keeps going down that road and she starts tearing it up in the ring, by God, she will probably be the Britt Baker that they wanted all along. Oh, look at this. The Cool Beans is disappearing. What? Why? Oh, because we're going to give some hot trash to Nyla Rose versus Big Swole. This was not good. It was not good. And anyone who tries to defend it is looking at this match completely through rose-colored glasses. The offense was soft. A lot of things didn't connect. Nyla hit one of the worst spears I have seen in a long time. This was not it. And I'm going to tell y'all, and I think I'm going to talk about it a little more on the post stream, which you can come join, by the way. It's a free preview for tonight, not just for patrons, for everyone. So come and join me after. I'm going to talk about this a little more. I don't know what AEW, I don't know what the problem is with their women's division. I don't understand it. It's not like they don't have the talent. It's not like they don't have good women to do this. There's something that's happening that's going beyond the talent that they're hiring and the product that's in the ring, the women that are competing in the ring. There's something that we're not seeing going on that is hampering this division. And it pisses me off because one of the reasons I'm not talking very, very personal basis, as if I give general opinions that I expect everyone to agree with. One of the reasons I got excited for AEW was their promise of a strong, interesting, compelling women's division. And we are still a far cry from that. It's not as if they're not trying. It's not as if they're not hiring the talent. It's not as if they don't have backstage veterans like Awesome Kong who can help guide the women and bring them to good matches or better understanding of what's happening in the ring. That's all okay. There's something, however, behind the scenes that we just don't see happening, and I don't know. I just do not know how to fix it, how to express to you how broken this is. And I don't have a solution because whatever is happening is beyond anything that we see right now. And I don't get it. And I still don't get why they're sitting on B. Priestley, why they're sitting on Sadie Gibbs. I don't know. Jamie Hayter apparently she was signed for like 2 weeks and she's gone now. But B. Priestley, Hikaru Shida, they're not pushing the right women. Look, there's so much stuff. And it breaks my heart. It legitimately breaks my heart because I want AEW to succeed. I'm not here rubbing my hands together. Finally, we're seeing cracks in the AEW armor. Suddenly I become Skeletor. But no, I am disappointed and I'm sad because I want AEW to do well. Because if AEW does well, we all benefit as fans. A nationwide, a nationally televised wrestling program on primetime cable television to compete with the WWE is good for all wrestling fans. So there you go. That's it for now. I'll be talking about more of that a little later. Want to talk about Darby Allin, man. He's such a special talent. In an evening where matches sort of happened and sort of connected and guys were kind of there, and then you had Angelico doing a match at some point where you wonder, what will this guy ever be motivated to do anything other than put on his Invisible Man suit? Darby Allin, what an absolute standout that evening. From the moment that he was in the ring with Chris Jericho, and Jericho was trying to intimidate him, and then Allin started playing off of him perfectly. He had a great explosive exchange with him at first, a drop kick and a lucha arm drag that sends Jericho cowering into the corner. And then later on, he gets a fantastic hot tag, like the hottest of hot tags. He hits a tope and a sunset bomb, a huge DDT on Santana, and he took out Jake Hager with a coffin drop to the outside again. By God, I love Darby Allin so goddamn much. He is such a star. He is so important to the future of AEW. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely absurd. I love the kid. And I hope that he can manage his desire to put his body in direct danger of everything with having a long, prosperous career. Because, hey, why am I still on Hot Trash? This is cool beans. Because he's so good at what he does. I want him to have a long career. And we're going to close out the segment here talking about that absolutely wild promo that happened on NWA Power this week. Now, I talked about it on the review that you can check out. By the way, it's on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes and also in your podcast feed. But I tried to talk about it, and I was coming off my stomach flu. So I was feeling good enough to do the show, but maybe I didn't have my usual energy levels. And I was trying to put over how great the promo segment was and how wild it was, and I kind of failed at it. But I'm going to try and give it another shot here tonight, because it was really, really good. It was so good. You had Eli Drake and James Storm. Maybe that should be their tag team name. Who come out there, the new NWA tag team champions, having won them off of the Rock and Roll Express in the triple threat match at Hard Times last Friday. They come out to cut a promo with Joe Galli. They start talking, and then Aaron Stevens and the question mark come out. And Aaron Stevens, who is one of the shining stars of Power. He's one of the reasons to tune in, for sure. He comes out with his third degree national championship and the longest black belt in the history in all of karate or karate. And they start talking. They sort of interrupt the champions, but then James Storm goes on some kind of wild tear where he's in complete 100% dad joke mode. He lays some golden jokes on Aaron Stevens, who's in his kimono, of course, and he says, "Hey, what did Bruce Lee drink when he was thirsty?" What the? He says, what did he eat when he was hungry? Kapow! And then he does the knock joke with the interrupting cow, impatient cow. Knock, who's there? Interrupting cow, who moo? He does that. Aaron Stevens plays along like a perfect not oblivious. He knows what's going on, but he just plays along with them. And then lands. What's the difference between Ronda Rousey, Ohio State, and the Packers? What do they all have in common? It's that they all lost on the last kick. And then he just sort of jostles away, and he's happy. The crowd is going wild. Eli Drake, his tag team partner, is sort of staring at him. It's like, what is going on? He doesn't understand. Everyone is dumbfounded, completely dumbfounded. Then Eli turns to Joe Galli and he says, "Look, Joe, can you do me a favor?" And Joe Galli says, "Yeah, yes, I can." And Eli Drake's like, No, can you do me a favor? And Joe Galli's like, "Yeah, yes, I can." And Eli Drake's like, "No, Joe Galli, can you do me a favor?" And I was like, "Yeah, yes, I can." And we're all at home sitting there listening to this promo, and we're like, "Joe, Eli wants you to do the thing that he does. That's what he's building you up to." And Joe's not getting Joe's completely oblivious to it. So James Storm has to come next to him and says, "Look, I'm going to impersonate him." And so Eli and Storm, Drake and Storm go to do the bit with Storm going, "Yeah," in a bit of a pencil neck kind of voice. And Joe Galli's like, "Oh, all right, okay, I get it now. All right, that's fine." So it was just all over there. And then so they do that. And then Drake says, "Look, do me a favor here. Try to make me understand. There's a guy here in his pajamas and another guy who went shopping at the bondage section at Hustlers." And he's like, are these guys here to challenge for our titles? And Joe's like, "Yeah, I guess." And then Trevor Murdoch comes out Trevor Murdoch comes out because he wants a shot at the North American title. He says, look, I lost in the finals against Ricky Starks. He's a fighting champion. You, Aaron Stevens, you're a coward. I want a shot at your title. And Murdoch gets Mongrovian spiked for his troubles. This was banana cuckoo crazy and exactly the kind of stuff that makes NWA so much fun to watch. When they say that, it's just unpredictable. That's what we like in wrestling, right? We like unpredictability. We love stuff that feels off the cuff, that doesn't feel performed, rehearsed is what I'm trying to say, and not necessarily performed, but rehearsed. This was it. It was like starting off with a promo here on one end, but then just diving into something completely else, where you're like, what is going on? What am I watching? And it feels unscripted. It feels improvised. Everyone sort of agreed on the bullet points and just went for it. It was so good. It's the reason to watch NWA Power this week, guys. It was a fun show, but that was something else. I think I'm going to have a drink of water now while we end the weekly wrestling inspection. Now, remember, if you want me to read your statement or comment or question right here live on the Mr. Warren Hayes show, as we're shooting right now, recording, I should say. We're not really shooting. It's more like a recording. A shooting would imply people around doing stuff. Hey, you know what you can do? You can send a super chat, and I'll do that. It'll be my pleasure to do so. You can also join me on Patreon. Of course, you can support the Mr. Warren Hayes show there. And don't forget, I'm going to repeat it again because it's exciting. The post-stream, Warren is off the clock, that usually happens for patrons only. Tonight is open as a free preview. So if you want to hear more wrestling talk after we're done here, in a bit of a different mood, different type of Warren, come on over after. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to fire that one up, and we're going to have ourselves another good time talking about women's wrestling in NXT, the amount of talent they have, and God, how are they ever going to get all these women over? But it's a good problem to have. Hey, you know what I did earlier this week? I mean, outside of being sick, I conducted an interview. Look at that. Call me the Charles Stossel. Is that what his name is? Who's an interviewer? Chris Hansen. Chris Hansen's an interviewer, right? He interviews pedophiles. No, don't call me Chris Hansen. I had a nice chit chat this week with a gentleman by the name of excuse me. I'm just trying to catch my breath here for a second. With a gentleman named Jason Norris. Jason is a wrestling fan. He lives in the UK. He operates a wrestling meetup organization called Wrestling London. And it just so happens that he's, like I said, a wrestling fan, but a big women's wrestling fan as well. And he recently, it's been a labor of love, let's put it that way. He put together an anthology of writings, texts, essays, and so on and so forth, articles, newsletter, whatever, called Women Love Wrestling. It's a book, is what I'm trying to say. 99.9% of professional wrestling books are written by men about male performers in a male-dominated business, and the goal of this book is to help correct the balance, giving a voice to women and fans of women's wrestling, showing women in the ring are just as captivating to watch, and that female fans are just as passionate. Women Love Wrestling is a collection of writing from women and about women in wrestling, written by fans, wrestlers, podcasters, promoters, journalists, culture critics, PhDs, and academics. And it's a mix of wrestling history, personal stories, studies of professional wrestling, focusing, of course, on women's wrestling, but also including stories from the wider world, including Victorian legends and reflections on how wrestling can be compared to Shakespeare, for instance. It's a great book that I had the opportunity to read, and I had the opportunity to talk to Jason about it as well. And not only that, but I was also joined by, or Jason was joined by Gizzy from the Deadass Girls Podcast, who was a contributor in the book as well. Lots of contributors. One amongst many contributors, including Amy Morgore, who was a great photographer, Dan and Emily Reed of Pro Wrestling Eve. We also had Harley Johnson, Heather Brandenburg, Scarlett Harris, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to butcher her name, Manansi Nene, who had a fantastic look on wrestling in India and how Indian society views women and how women's wrestling in India is sort of operating within this very interesting societal context. Sarah the Rebel, professional wrestler who wrestles in WoW, has an article in there as well. I was able to record this chat that we had along with Jason and Gizzy, and it is my pleasure to show it off to you right here and now. Enjoy it, everyone. So I am pleased to be joined right now by Jason Norris, who put together the Women Love Wrestling Anthology, and as well by Gizzy of the Deadass Podcast, who was also a contributor in the book. Jason, Gizzy, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
It's great to be here.
Jason, we're gonna do the most obvious question. We're gonna get that one straight out of the way. Why do a book on women's wrestling?
I'll give you the short answer because I could definitely talk about this for a lot. But the short answer is I love reading wrestling books. I've read so many of them over the years, and there's not many written by women or about women's wrestling. And there's two key interactions that drove this. One was with Heather Brandenburg. She's in the book. She's written her own book about her wrestling career and life. And I met her to interview her for the podcast I appear on, like the Holy Shoot podcast. And I was trying to do these interviews. And she was talking to me about how, there's nothing out there for women to read but like wrestling. Mm-hmm. And then months later, I was talking to Jackie Pratt, who I was mainly talking to because I love her band, Cheap Pop. They write really good wrestling songs. Mm-hmm. So I was talking to her. And she's like, I've been doing a PhD and I'm writing about wrestling. And I was like, wow. I have to read this. And I read the chapter and then interviewed her about it. And it was the most amazing writing. And, she put the idea in my head of like, we should try and do something. There's probably interest out there to do it. And that led to recruiting all the team really to work on it. And I guess I really wanted to make it a collaborative effort and make it good, good wrestling and for good things like charity and making it actually a worthwhile cause to get everyone involved. And that's how it came about, really. That's the short version. There's a lot of like points along the way to get here, but I was looking for an interesting project, and there were just these little moments along the way where people said interesting things or just gave me ideas, and we ended up with this book.
And you said it was a long process looking for people. How did you decide on who you wanted in the book? What was your what? Giselle's giggling, but yeah, exactly. How did you decide to ask so and so to be in your book?
So this goes back to when I first interviewed Heather for the podcast, and then and then we turned that into part of the book. And I was trying to arrange that meeting with her, and I was like, we could just do the interview in my office. And she put it out, I can't meet you in your office. I have to meet you in a public place. And I realized, because guys can be douchebags and you don't just meet random guys when you're a woman. And I had to apply that to this logic in terms of, I was like, okay, I'm going to look on Twitter for women that like wrestling. And that was like a starting point, looking at women that had been using these hashtags, finding a few figures to like, I believe Kristen, vaguely.
Slightly, yes.
Yeah, vaguely. So I remember coming across her, like her profile team. Who did she follow and who was following her? And that was like going down the rabbit hole. And I've got this list of all these Twitter accounts of like, here's all the people I'm going to try and contact that look like they'd be really interesting and might have an opinion because they are either doing podcasts about wrestling or they're writing about it already.
Right.
And that's how I found the Deadass Girls podcast. It was somewhere along the way that they're quite high on the list of accounts I found. I was like, I'm going to reach out to these people. So a lot of it was just. Oh, go ahead. So,
No. Sorry, go finish your thought. Please do.
So a lot of it was just researching that way and just trying to find people that clearly had a passion for wrestling.
And sending DMs.
Well, there's the question I wanted to ask, Jason. You were talking about, meeting up with Heather and she being, no, let's do this in a public place. there's kind of the same. How difficult was it to reach out to these women via DMs, knowing that women on Twitter sometimes,
Yeah, so I think Gizzy and I were talking about this earlier. And it's so when I sent out the messages, I had a blog and I put a bunch of information on the blog and I said, look, I'm working on this project. Here's a summary. Here's a link for more information. And I think on the blog even in the DM I was like, I am a real person and I'm not doing something dodgy here. And I sent them to a blog post that explained the project in more detail and I could put into a DM. And I said, and here's a link. I said, here's a link to my Instagram account. Here's the Watch Wrestling London meetup group I manage. All these people can vouch for me. I think I just gave a few links and explained, look, I am an actual person. I think I might have said, like, if you need to, you can ask my wife. I'm not someone to be worried about. And I was very conscious of like sharing that information with people, so that they realized, oh, this is actually legit and not a hairy wrestling fan. For
exactly.
A better reference.
And I'm pretty sure that once you started DMs and you didn't start asking the women for Amazon gift cards, I'm pretty sure that they felt secure that you were legitimate. Giselle, you have a podcast. You also contributed you also did contribute to the book. You actually had your topic is basically on the New York scene, on the New York independent scene. Tell me about how you decided on your topic.
Yeah, I mean, with our podcast, the Deadass Girls Podcast. So Deadass is a euphemism, is a term in New York City. It can mean a lot of things. And I thought that was just an appropriate name for our podcast. So that sort of led us into the topic for the book. So, I mean, since starting the podcast, I've met a lot of people who are associated with the wrestling scene. Either they're independent wrestlers or they're content creators around wrestling, or they write, or, there's these great people that I know, jobber tiers, they throw wrestling viewing parties. And I figured, this is an emerging scene in New York City. And I mean, we're known for sports. Not all teams are good. But I thought that, if I can write about something that's actually good that's coming up, we would have a more direct perspective on it. And the research process was fun because I was able to actually, meet up with a lot of friends who I knew in real life and just get their opinions and, along with the basic research. And also it's just typically in the independent wrestling scene, when you think about independent wrestling, you're thinking about a lot of promotions that are mostly based in other states, like in Florida or in Texas, a lot of the southern states. And, the fact that we have a wrestling scene in the Northeast of the United States that's coming up, I thought that was actually pretty interesting. And a lot of the big wrestlers now that we see on TV, they've been in and out of the gyms here too. And then also like when we have pay-per-views, the energy in the city is so different. I mean, like I'll say during SummerSlam, they were hosting SummerSlam in Brooklyn, which the stadium is like 20 minutes from me. And when I say like the city comes together and it's just this buzz, and I wanted to capture that feeling in the chapter of the book that we contributed to.
One of the things that I found that stood out for me in your contribution to the book is how normal everything you talk about sounds. Was this part of your idea, just to show that I'm just like you? I like wrestling just on the same level. Was that something you were trying to go get?
It wasn't intentional. So myself and Gina, who's the second Deadass girl, it was just sort of the way that we speak. We've been wrestling fans since we were young. So when we talk about wrestling, it's not really, oh yeah, we're a girl, we're women who like wrestling. It's just like, no, we like wrestling point blank. Just like, if you ask a wrestler, like you don't want to designate them as male versus female wrestler. They're just wrestlers, period. So I wanted to capture the essence. Yes, the book is Women Love Wrestling, but I think the great thing about the book, with the collection of people that Jason was able to put together, is that everyone's voice was unique and no one focused on the fact that they're women. It just sounded like, hey, we're fans. We know what we're talking about. We appreciate the art. We just happen to have a different set of genitalia. But all in all, we are the same. So that's really what I wanted to capture. Also, another voice that I wanted to capture was the New York voice. How it's very straightforward. It's very to the point, and I think we were able to do that here. That hey, this is wrestling. This is New York City. Like it or get out.
Yeah, that's a very New York approach. But you brought it up talking about the variety of voices that are in the book, because yes, there's lots of different perspectives and takes. There's yours, but there are articles or essays which are much more personal, and you have things like Sarah Perkins's assessment of the fact that women have always been wrestling fans back in the 80s through Japan. The historical recountings are a lot of fun. There's pieces on the rise of Shimmer and Pro Wrestling Eve written by Dan and Emily Reed. You have an article on Glow as well. To the business from Amy, the photographer, Sarah the Rebel, who wrestles as Razor in Women of Wrestling, and Kristen Ashley, who we briefly mention on the show here on occasion, as a wrestling journalist, as a woman, how the difficulties that she meets as well. Lots of personal perspectives. Jason, do you have an article that you prefer? It's one that, or maybe not prefer, but one that resonates a little more with you?
Oh, it's a good question. And what I like about every one of the articles, I was quite deliberate in trying not to, when I was editing, to keep everyone's their style and their tone of voice there. So like Gizzy was saying, for your piece, there was you wouldn't want, you might, if you were doing a classic English writing thing, say, no, this all has to change. But it was actually, no, it's the actual style and language of the person writing it, and the passion came through. And that's evident on a lot of the pieces. It means that all the articles do have a different tone of voice to them, which is why it's really interesting. And then it also means that my favorite changes. It varies depending what mood I'm in some of the time, but there's a couple that I love. I think I really enjoyed the fact that I got to interview Dan and Emily Reed from Pro Wrestling Eve, just because they spoke to me for an hour going into the history of Eve, and it was really interesting to just learn some things I would never have known otherwise. I really enjoyed some of the academic pieces we got as well from there. I think we got 3 or 4 PhDs writing in this book about wrestling. So and they do it from a real academic, here's all my references, I'm using very big words style that goes into that as well. So there's a real mix. I mean, the one that I keep going back to, I think, and some of them are really unique pieces, it's the boss and the Bard, which is the piece which is all about how Shakespeare and pro wrestling are very similar. And I think I love the way that one's written. It just makes me smile every time I read it.
What about you, Gizzy? Do you have anything that stood out to you? I mean, outside yours, of course. I mean, I know.
I was about to just plug myself in that. It's like, hey, the Deadass Girls. No. It was so hard to pick a favorite, because I loved reading each piece from perspective, and I think that's another reason why I love the book so much is, everyone thinks that a female wrestling fan is just one archetype, but in this book you had different voices. Like you had, the one person who's an independent wrestler, you have a PhD, you got me who barely has it together, and we all just wrote it into a book, and I think that was my favorite. But if I had to pick one, I think it was the piece that Sarah the Rebel wrote, only because it just sounded so her. Like, I don't know if you ever watched the movie The Wrestler.
Yes.
With Mickey Rourke. Yeah, it sort of reminded me of that, of like her, like trials and tribulations, and like her, during her comeuppance. But then she's like very snarky to turn around, like, hey, cut it out. I really appreciated how she was able to call out a lot of the negatives in the industry and just say, hey, women are wrestling fans. I'm a female wrestler. Like, show me the same respect that you show my male counterpart. So I really like that. I mean, it was pretty straightforward, and just sort of to hear from an indie wrestler, because many times when we see wrestlers, if you don't follow them in the independent scene, you see them on the big screen or the big, WWE, and you don't really think about what they had to do to get there. So I really enjoyed that piece.
I did too. It's always fun to get these peeks behind the curtain, which we do get
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit, in many of the articles. Jason, yeah, well, you were mentioning that one thing that was important was the language, the passion that everyone was using. But one thing that I did notice is that the book doesn't cater necessarily to hardcore wrestling fans. In the language and the terminology that's used in the wrestling business, or that maybe smarter fans are aware of, in a lot of circumstances, time is taken to explain, what a baby face and what a heel is, what an angle is, just to. How important was it to you, for you, Jason, to sort of, on one hand, or how important and how tough was it? We can go both ways here. For you to cater on one hand to wrestling fans, but also keep it open so that maybe a more casual fan, someone who just finds the subject in and about itself interesting, can jump in without knowing all the intricacies of the wrestling business.
Yeah, that was actually a real consideration of mine when we were putting the book together. It to work for a wrestling fan and a non-wrestling fan that maybe is interested in gender
Sure.
issues or equality, or just thinks it sounds like an interesting topic. If I tried to structure the actual opening chapters so that they actually ease you in and explain the things as well. So like the first chapter is Sarah Perkins' one about, the fact that women have always been wrestling fans. And then there's an article about different types of fandom. So we start with a few ones that kind of introduce you to the world of wrestling if you don't know what it is, and deliberately in those chapters explain what the terms are. Because if you say, hopefully, if you read the book in order, you would find that as you get to later chapters, you don't need things explained.
Right.
You already understand what people are talking about, so there's not the need to explain it again. So that was a real consideration, because I didn't want it to just be using wrestling terminology and straight away you lose an audience. They don't know what a baby face is. They don't understand when you're talking about what it is to be a base or a flyer. Those kind of terminologies that people throw out all the time. So I'm glad you picked up on it as well. So it's cool that that's sort of coming through.
And which also proves that I read the book.
And just to
Sure.
add on that, what he had mentioned, gender issues, I think nowadays, with this resurgence of social justice, I mean, it was great the fact that you took the time to structure the book in that, here's the beginning, here's the intro, here's the basics of it. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes towards the end. And then, for someone who's maybe not a wrestling fan or someone who's interested, this might be the book that makes them interested. So this might be the book that says, hey, I'm going to go online and check out some videos, or, hey, I might check out Raw and SmackDown on TV. So I guess when, with the email process, communicating back and forth, I did see how you moved around the pieces, how they would fit into the book. And then when I finally got the book, I'm like, this makes sense. I understand. Not only as a wrestling fan, but if I didn't know anything, it's okay, at the end of the book, I know what kayfabe means.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use that word now.
Just following all this same idea, keeping the book open for non-wrestling fans, but wrestling fans as well. This is going to go to Jason as well. How difficult or how easy has it been, Jason, for you to get the word of the book out there? How simple has it or difficult has it been for you to get actual coverage for the book?
It's not been as easy as I would have liked, and I think having spoken to people like Emily and Dan, when they're trying to get coverage for Eve, and Kristen talking about Bell to Bells and how she's trying to get coverage and access, and I spent a good bit of time. We did the initial launch, and the team all got really behind it. There's been lots of retweets. We found a few podcasters. People have been really active from the team. But I've gone out, if you Google pro wrestling and you find all the main pro wrestling sites, I've tried to contact them via DM or their contact form or email. I pretty much had zero response. And it might just be that I have not gone about it the right way, but I've tried to explain what the project is. I've sent it with an actual press release. I've tried contacting multiple people. So far, I'm going to keep plugging away at it and trying to get that reach. But unfortunately, it goes back to what others have told me. It's like, yeah, it's really hard to get people to cover women's wrestling and anything related to it, which kind of sucks.
And it's an interesting. I'm going to use the word interesting because I don't want to add on another 15 minutes here because we all have stuff to do. But
no, man, I cleared my day for this.
But it's interesting because there is a moment, or at least there's a very big movement for women's wrestling, for equality. Let's promote the women. There's a lot of talk, but oftentimes when it's time to put your money where your mouth is. There's a couple of sites out there that surprise and shock me when they when they're unable to actually do things. They just like to talk a lot, but when it's actually time to do stuff, But I don't want to end our discussion on a sour note here. Jason, you're giving all the profits of the book are going towards charities. What charities are people who buy the book supporting?
Yeah, so I guess a bit of plug on that. So yeah, you buy the book from Amazon in digital or paperback format, and all the profits we make are going. We've got 2 charities, because we've got a lot of contributors from all over the world, but mainly from the US and the UK. So for the US, we've got RAIN, who help women that have been victims of sexual abuse, and in the UK we've got Women's Aid, which is more focused on domestic abuse. But yeah, so everything we make, we're plugging into those 2 charities.
So buy the book, guys.
Yes, buy the book.
Okay, it's right here. It's beautiful. I wrote in it. Okay, if you want to learn more about Gizzy in the New York scene, as Jason was saying, how hard it's been to push the book out there. Sure. I'm gonna tell you, I've been so active on pushing this book, and I'm gonna be more active, and I'm gonna pledge to you right now that I'm getting all my New York people to boost the hell out of this book, because as you said, I mean, it's one thing to sit behind a computer or be on your phone and tweet about women's matches and women's wrestling, like, oh, give women a chance, give divas a chance. It's like, okay, we're doing something where we're giving all women a chance. Why are you guys so hush-hush about it?
The reluctance.
It's like we have so many books about, the male wrestling perspective and male wrestlers. It's like we have something that's raw, genuine, and accessible to everyone. And, hopefully whoever watches this video, whoever watches this, I'm not threatening you. I'm just saying, you should buy the book. Just saying.
People from Brooklyn basically terrify me. That's my. Y'all should go buy the book just on that alone.
Go buy the damn book. Look at it. Look at it. It's beautiful. Okay, you got Amazon a Prime account, free shipping, 2-day shipping. Is in Barnes and Nobles now, which Jason found out recently. Okay, look at the book. It's great. I'm in it, so that's another freaking reason for you to buy it, along with other amazing, beautiful women. Hashtag Women Love Wrestling. All right, let's boost the hell out.
Yeah, there's a lot of fantastic women in here. We talked about Razor from WoW, who's in here. Scarlett Harris is in there as well. Harley Johnson. Look, and there's fantastic women. Really, really a great read. Gives you perspective on what it means to be a wrestling fan, but also from a woman's perspective is what I'm saying, of course. And also there's some history of women's wrestling. It's wonderful. You see, you get to touch on so many subjects. I strongly recommend picking it up, if only because of the if only because of the good that the proceeds of the book are trying to do here. Would you like to let us know where people can find you for further works on your end?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've got the womenlovewrestling.net website, so that's the easiest way to find out more. And then I'm on Twitter what am I at Twitter on? I think I'm Wrestling London.
Yes.
That'd be me. Wrestling London.
Gizzy, what about you? You have a podcast, you have stuff. Let the people know where to find you.
Yes, we do. All right. So Again, we wrote in a book, Women Love Wrestling. Pick that shit up. Also, you can follow our podcast. We're super active on social media. It's at Deadass Girls on Twitter and at Deadass Girls on Instagram. So we post a lot of wrestling memes on there. If you want to listen to the podcast and if you're ready to dive in to the Deadass family, you can find us on many podcasting platforms. So we're on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Castbox, other random websites that you guys get in other countries. So just type in Deadass Girls Podcast on Google, click on the link, sit back and enjoy.
And all these links will all be available in the description of the video on YouTube, of the podcast,
Yes, sir.
of the podcast as well. So everyone listening or watching right now will be able to pick them up. Jason, Gizzy, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. It's been awesome. I'm sorry for hijacking the thing, but it's just like Jason is such a sweetheart. Like I'm telling you, you're a member of the Deadass family officially. Okay, like you reached out to us. He was so genuine. He was so nice and respectful about it, and you know, just like the anticipation of all coming together. And then Warren, I've seen you on Instagram. You know, I'm sorry, on Twitter, and I've seen some of your videos pop up, and I love to just jump in. And I mean, I support wrestling content creators like
Ditto.
to the death. So both of you guys are Deadass family members. Anytime you want us to join on, we will be happy. Again, people, Women Love Wrestling is out now. Get it.
Giselle cutting the promos today. That's fantastic. But thank you both for joining. This was a great talk. Maybe have you back on because there's so many things we haven't touched on. But I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you both very much.
Yeah, I'd love to come
Absolutely.
back sometime.
Thank you, man. Take care.
There we go. That was my talk with Jason Norris, who compiled the Women Loves Wrestling Anthology, and as well as Gizzy from the Deadass Girls Podcast. It was good stuff. It was a good talk, and it's a great book as well. You should check it out over on Amazon.com. The link is in the description of the video. Will be in the link of the description of the podcast as well. If you're listening to this on your podcast application, but go check it out. It's a great book, lots of fun stuff, and it's for a bunch of good causes. There's no reason why you shouldn't pick it up. There's also links in the bottom to follow the Deadass Girls and Jason as well. Go out, find them, become friends with them, tell them Warren sent you, but buy the damn book. It's a good one. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we're gonna wrap this one up for tonight. I see Conrad in the chat popping in, and Blaine. I'm glad you guys came in, but I'm wrapping this one up for tonight, folks. But hey, don't forget, wrapping this one up, so to speak. Give me a couple of minutes to freshen up here, and then I'm going to head on over to the post stream. Warren is off the clock. Remember, folks, it is a free preview, so even if you're not a patron, a $5 patron member, you can join tonight. But I do want to say thank you to the patrons who do support the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, such as the Smart to Death Podcast, Ryan Burke, Nick Wolf, Kristen Ashley, John Washaba, Jason, Clay, Harmony, Big Paws and a Pup, and Ben Parizet. I want to thank you all for your unequivocal support of what I do, and I hope to see you all on the post show where we're going to talk about the NXT situation with all their women. There's so much stuff for them to do. It's crazy. Let's go talk about that. And if you can't make it, that's fine. If you can, and I'm still glad you showed up tonight, and I'll see you next time.